Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to tackle a word that is, well, it's simultaneously one of the most common words in human language, and if we're being honest, probably one of the most loaded.
Oh yeah, that is a very safe bet.
Right. I mean, it's a word everyone uses, but I suspect everyone means something slightly different when they actually say it.
It's one of those concepts where the definition definitely shifts depending on who is in the room.
Exactly. So we are talking about prayer today.
We are.
But hey, before you assume this is going to be a sermon or some kind of religious service, hit the pause button on that thought. We are doing what we always do here, which is analyzing a text.
Right, we're breaking down the source material.
And we have a really fascinating article in front of us today. It's titled An Anatomy of Prayer, From Psychological Release to Spiritual Fellowship. It was written by Monica Vellem and published in Brood-Ambry.
And honestly, the title really gives away the whole mission here. An anatomy.
Yeah, that word choice is very deliberate.
It is. Vellem isn't just, telling people to pray. She is dissecting the act itself. She's basically putting prayer on the operating table to see what makes it pick.
Right, to distinguish the vital organs from the superficial tissue, I guess.
Exactly, and to explain why it actually works for the believer.
I have to say, the whole anatomy framing was super helpful for me.
Oh, totally.
Because it kind of takes the emotion out of it for a second. It lets us just look at the mechanics. And Vellem starts with a pretty bold assertion right off the bat.
She does.
She claims that while we all know the word star rattle, the practice itself defies complete definition by human language.
It's a very strong opening. She calls it a spiritual reality.
A spiritual reality.
Right. So her argument is that because prayer exists outside of our physical, tangible world, our words for it are always going to be a little bit insufficient.
Which makes sense.
It's like trying to describe a color to someone who's never seen it. You can get close, but you can't quite capture the actual essence of it.
So if the definition is that slippery, how does she ground the discussion for the reader?
Well, she starts by contrasting what she calls the human-centric view with the believer's perspective.
Okay, let's start with that human-centric side then, because I think a lot of us are going to recognize ourselves there.
Definitely. The human-centric view is essentially the secular or psychological definition of prayer.
Right.
If you take the divine mystery out of the equation, what are you left with? Vellem argues you are basically left with internal dialogue.
Internal dialogue, yeah. She calls it self-talk or processing regrets.
Right.
It's that moment when you're, driving alone in the car and you're just venting into the void. Like, why did I say that? Or I really hope this works out.
Exactly. Or brainstorming ideas. And she uses the phrase, letting out steam to an imaginary entity.
Letting out steam.
Yeah. So in this view, the primary function of prayer is psychological release.
It's a coping mechanism for the person doing the talking.
Precisely. You aren't necessarily expecting a reply. You just really need to get the pressure off your chest.
Which is completely valid, right? I mean, we all need to vent.
Oh, absolutely.
But then she brings up a specific type of secular prayer that actually made me laugh, even though it's a little biting. She calls it the adult holiday wish list.
Yes, it is a sharp critique, but it's really crucial for her overall argument. This is the transactional view of prayer.
A wish list.
Right, it's the idea that prayer is just a mechanism for presenting requests to a deity. I want this job. I need this check to clear. Please fix my back.
It does sound a lot like a letter to Santa Claus, but for grown-ups.
It really does. And to back this up, she actually quotes the Webster Dictionary definition of prayer, which I found fascinating.
Oh, right. I have that here.
Go ahead.
Webster defines it as the act of asking for a favor, and particularly with earnestness.
The act of asking for a favor.
That feels incredibly small, doesn't it?
It does.
It sounds like asking your neighbor to borrow their lawnmower.
Exactly. It trivializes the interaction. And that is Vellem's pivot point in the text.
Yeah.
She argues that if you stop there,
if you just think it's a favor,
right, if you think prayer is just a psychological vent session or a transactional request for a favor, you have missed the entire anatomy of the practice.
You've missed the organs and the tissue completely.
Yes. She argues that for the believer, specifically in the Christian context she's writing, about prayer is not a transaction. It's a spiritual reality that actually functions as a tool.
Now, this is where the text gets really interesting to me because she starts throwing out these metaphors that feel very active.
Yes, very dynamic.
She doesn't just say, oh, it's talking to God. She calls prayer a portal and a fortress.
Those are heavy metaphors.
Yeah.
Let's look at portal first.
Okay.
A portal implies travel. It implies access. It suggests that prayer isn't just sending a message out, it's moving your consciousness from one reality to another.
And then pairing that with fortress,
Ugh.
that implies safety and defense. So if
Yeah,
you combine them, she's saying prayer is the portal into the fortress.
precisely. If the world around you is chaotic, if you are dealing with stress or fear or confounding life situations, as she puts it, prayer is the mechanism that transports you into a safe harbor.
A safe harbor.
Yeah, it's not about changing the external situation immediately. It's about changing your location relative to the problem.
I want to dig into that safe harbor idea because it sounds very peaceful, but then she drops a term that sounds almost technological to me.
I think I know which one you mean.
She calls prayer the passcode.
Yes, I circled that 3 times in my notes. Passcode.
It's such a binary term, right? You either have the code or you don't. It doesn't matter how nice you are or how earnest you are. If you don't punch in the code, the door doesn't open.
It implies exclusivity and necessity. She says prayer is the passcode to accessing grace for everyday existence.
Accessing grace.
Right. So she is arguing that grace, that spiritual fuel, is sitting behind a locked door, and prayer is literally the only key that fits the lock.
And she lays out the stakes of not using that passcode. And this is where I actually got hung up on a specific word she used.
Which one?
She says, without prayer, there is a sense of disconnection, which totally makes sense. But then she says there's a loss of productivity.
I know. Productivity. It sounds like she's talking about hitting your KPIs at work or something.
Exactly. It sounds so corporate. Is she saying if I don't pray, I won't get my spreadsheets done on time?
Not quite.
Well,
I think we have to reclaim the word productivity in a spiritual context here. Think about a machine.
okay.
If a machine is unplugged from its power source, it isn't productive. It can't do what it was designed to do. Vellem writes that without prayer, the believer cannot breathe in the very essence of the divine.
Okay, so if prayer is breathing, then not praying is holding your breath.
And if you hold your breath, you eventually pass out. You cease to function.
Wow.
That is the loss of productivity she's talking about. It's not about checking off a to-do list. It's about the literal inability to function as a spiritual being because you have cut off your own oxygen supply.
That makes the stakes feel so much higher. It's not just, it would be nice if you prayed today. It's, you will stop working if you don't.
And that leads to perhaps the most aggressive concept in the entire article. We talked about asking for a favor earlier.
The Webster definition, yeah.
Right. Vellem replaces that weak image with something so much stronger. She says prayer is a mechanism to negotiate destinies.
Negotiate destinies. That just stopped me in my tracks when I read it.
It's intense.
It sounds so dramatic. It sounds like you're sitting across a boardroom table from fate and haggling over the terms of your life.
It is dramatic, but it gives the believer a massive amount of agency. Asking for a favor is passive. You ask and you hope.
Right.
Negotiating a destiny is active. It implies a place of exchange, which is another metaphor she uses alongside sacrifice.
A place of exchange. So you bring something to the table.
Exactly. You bring your confusion and you exchange it for clarity. You bring your fear and you exchange it for peace.
So it's not just shouting into the void hoping someone hears. It's a transaction, but a deeply transformative one. You are actively engaging with the future.
Right. She mentions using prayer to seek clarity on those confounding life situations we brought up earlier. That is the negotiation. You are working through the problem in that spiritual fortress, rather than just sitting back and letting life happen to you.
So if we accept her premise here, that prayer is this dynamic portal, this fortress, this control panel for life, basically, then the next logical question is it optional?
Like you just skip it.
Yeah, can you be a good believer and just not do it?
Vellem anticipates that exact question, and she answers it with a very strict logical proof. She points to what she calls the ultimate template.
The example of Jesus Christ.
Correct. And she uses a very standard form of logical argumentation here. It's the a fortiori argument.
Which means if it applies to the greater, it must apply to the lesser.
Exactly.
So basically, if the CEO has to swipe a security badge to get into the building, the intern definitely isn't getting in without one.
That is a perfect analogy. Vellem argues that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the high priest, the one with the direct connection, found prayer absolutely necessary for his ministry. She points out that the scriptures show him praying constantly.
She actually quotes a specific verse for this. It's Luke 18:1. Men ought always to pray and not faint.
There's that word faint again. It connects right back to our discussion on productivity and holding your breath.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Even the ultimate template risked fainting, spiritually speaking, without the discipline of prayer.
So the logic is airtight. If the Son of God couldn't just wing it, we certainly cannot.
She calls it a non-negotiable necessity.
Hmm.
If you want to be like the Savior, you have to do what the Savior did. You can't claim the identity, but skip the actual discipline.
Okay, so we've established the what. It's a portal and a fortress.
Right.
And we've established the why. It's spiritual oxygen, and it's totally non-negotiable.
Yes.
Now we really have to talk about the how, because let's be honest, and Vellem is very honest about this too in the text, prayer is hard.
It is incredibly hard, and this is where the article shifts a bit from strict theology to psychology. She makes a hard distinction between prayer as a hobby or ritual versus prayer as a discipline.
I really liked this distinction because a hobby is just something I do when I have free time. And a ritual is something I do on special occasions, like a wedding or a funeral.
Right. And Vellem argues that if prayer is just a ritual to you performed only on special occasions, it will inevitably become tedious.
She uses some really harsh words there, actually. Tedious, boring, mechanical, empty.
She's describing the experience of just going through the motions without the quickening presence of the Spirit.
The quickening presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you are just reciting words into the air, of course it's boring. It's like talking on a cell phone that isn't connected to a cellular network. You're just talking to yourself.
And this is where she brings in my absolute favorite part of the article, the chocolate cake analogy.
It's so good.
Now, at first glance, I honestly thought she was just trying to be funny, but she's actually making a very serious point about how our human brains work.
It's a brilliant analogy about acquired tastes. She basically says, think about chocolate cake. Do you have to discipline yourself to eat a piece of chocolate cake?
No.
Do you have to write eat cake on your daily to-do list and force yourself to do it?
Absolutely not. I see cake, I want cake, I eat cake. It is pure instant gratification.
Right. Because it appeals to your natural senses. It's sweet, it gives you an immediate dopamine hit, it's just easy. But Vellem argues that a palate for prayer is not like chocolate cake.
It's not a natural appetite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not something we naturally crave.
So it's more like kale or black coffee.
Or running.
Running is a perfect comparison. Think about running. The first time you go for a run, does it feel good?
No, it's terrible.
Your lungs burn, your legs hurt. You just want to stop immediately. It offers zero immediate gratification.
You literally have to force yourself to do it.
You do. But if you stick with the discipline, eventually you develop the physical capacity for it. You might even reach a point where you crave it, where you actually feel off if you don't run.
Right.
Vellem is saying prayer is exactly like that. It requires time, diligence, and investment to develop the palate for it. I think that is so validating for listeners to hear. Because I think a lot of people try to pray and it feels dry or boring. It doesn't taste like chocolate cake. And they think, well, I guess I'm just not a spiritual person. I'm just bad at this.
And Vellem is stepping in and saying, no, you just haven't built the muscle yet.
Mm-hmm.
She explicitly says it does not happen magically. You have to voluntarily commit to the discipline, even when it doesn't feel good.
She even suggests a bit of a loop here to help with that. She says, we need a fervent plea for mercy and grace just to sustain the desire to pray.
Yes.
So you literally have to pray for the desire to pray.
That's the intentionality she's calling for. You have to be willing to admit, I don't have the taste for this yet. Please give me the taste for intimacy. It's about being totally honest about the difficulty of the practice.
And part of that difficulty, I think, comes right back to where we started, the spiritual reality of it. It's inherently hard to discipline yourself to do something that is happening in an invisible dimension.
Which brings us to her final major concept in the anatomy, the spiritual location.
This was a bit of a mind bender for me, I have to admit. She draws a really sharp line between postures and places.
It's a vital distinction. We often obsess over the physical postures of prayer. Should I kneel? Should I stand up? Should I close my eyes? Fold my hands?
Right.
Vellem notes that those are fine, but they are just accompanying physical acts. They are a separate topic. They are not the prayer itself.
You can kneel and not be praying.
Exactly. You can be on your knees, physically looking like an absolute saint, but your mind is making a grocery list or replaying an argument you had with your boss.
We've all been there.
Vellem argues that prayer is a spiritual place or dimension. It's a specific location you enter.
It goes right back to the portal and the fortress. The goal isn't just to bend your knees. The goal is to transport your consciousness into that safe harbor.
She describes it as a dimension where prayer flows with ease. When you are actually in that spiritual location, the connection is open. The passcode has been entered successfully.
So really, you could be driving that car we talked about earlier, eyes wide open, hands on the steering wheel, but spiritually, you are deep inside the fortress.
Yes. And conversely, you could be sitting in a grand cathedral surrounded by incense and choir music and be completely locked out of the fortress.
Wow.
It's not about where your physical body is, it's about where your spirit is located.
That reframes the entire activity for me. It completely moves it from something I do with my body to somewhere I go with my spirit.
And getting to that place is the discipline. You don't just magically stumble into the fortress. You have to know the way, you have to have the passcode, and you have to be willing to put in the diligent work to get there, even when you'd much rather just eat chocolate cake.
So let's recap this anatomy lesson for everyone.
Yeah.
We started with the secular misunderstanding that prayer is just a wish list or a psychological vent session.
And then we move to the believer's reality, that it's a dynamic portal, a fortress, a place of exchange, and a life-sustaining breath.
We looked at the logic, that if the master needed it as an absolute necessity, the student definitely does too. It's non-negotiable.
And we landed on the reality of the work involved, that it is an acquired taste that requires serious, intentional discipline to enter that spiritual location.
It's such a challenging analysis. It takes something we so often treat as a nice to have and argues that it is actually the engine of the entire spiritual life.
It really is.
It leaves me with a final thought to chew on, and I want to leave this with you as you finish up your commute or your workout. If Vellem is right, and prayer is a spiritual location rather than just a physical act, how do you enter that location without moving a single muscle?
That is the real discipline, isn't it? Learning to punch in that passcode purely with the spirit.
That is the question to explore. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.